I'm Eileen Nash. Join me every week as we meet interesting people who will teach you new, creative ways to manage stress and embrace vitality in your life. Grab a cup of tea and join me for this adventure. This is the first in what will be an ongoing series entitled Women in Business. This series will highlight women leaders who are willing to share their valuable knowledge about starting a business. Today's guest is Fran Meyer. Hi, welcome to Restore Your Caring Soul. I'm here with my special guest, Fran Meyer, and this is the first in a series called Women in Business. And I picked Fran because I've known her for several years, and she is my go-to person on finance and startup. And so welcome to the show, Fran.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Your background it's really amazing. Which you started off at Stanford Business School, right?
Stanford undergrad, Stanford Business School.
Great.
Grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yeah. Tell everybody about your background, about what sort of drew you to be wanting to be in business, and how was that formed within your personality?
You know, I think I've always been interested in what makes people tick, what incentives. My dad was a salesman, so, you know, we'd be driving down to school and he'd be telling me about his new prospect and how he was going to close this lead. He was in insurance sales. So I think I was really influenced a lot by my dad. I worked on Hidden Valley Ranch salad dressing and Kingsford charcoal. And I decided I loved marketing. You know, It was so much. It still is something. I always like to look at advertising. I always like to look at going to a grocery store and seeing what's on the shelves. And I'm always interested in that thing. But what I liked about marketing as a career is that you can take it in so many different places. You know, there's communications and public relations, there's analytics and market research, there's advertising and nowadays online lead generation and things like that. So it has a good dose of the creative aspect. You know, what is it going to get somebody excited so that they buy your product? But also has a lot of math and numbers to it and analytics. And that really just turned me on.
And this resonated with you, I can tell. And you followed that lead.
Yeah, I did. And I was very dedicated to having a good career. When I was in my teens, my parents divorced. And at that point, my mom didn't have a degree. She eventually went back and got a teaching credential, and she's bilingual, so that was good for her. But when I saw her in my teen years going through a fairly contentious divorce with very little resources to call her own, and as we know, you know, in the 70s, a woman couldn't even get her own credit card under her own name. And I saw that, and I think I did make a mental note to myself that I was going to be able to, you know, be in charge of my own future. I mean, at this point, I think I do things for a lot of reasons, some of them having to do with my own internal drive, and sometimes it's to have an impact.
I think it's really interesting that you brought this up about family, because in my own family, my mother had not graduated from high school, and she made sure all of us got through high school and then had some kind of career where you knew you were going to have a job. And because of the freedom that it would afford all of us. Tell our audience about your involvement in Match.com. I think this is a fascinating story.
So Match.com was a great time in my life. As I mentioned, I was doing marketing. And in 1994, I was doing marketing for AAA, the Automobile Club. And it was there when I first saw the internet.
I have goosebumps.
This is going to change everything. Just knew it. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was reading books about the one-to-one future and other ways of connecting people to the things and the products that they love. So when I went to my business school reunion, I connected with Gary Kremen. And Gary had started a company called Electric Classifieds. And Gary's idea, and remember this is before eBay or Craigslist, was to take the newspapers and get the newspapers to put their classifieds online through Electric Classifieds, our company. But the proof of concept was something called Match.com. And Gary wanted a woman to lead Match.com. He also thought that my marketing background would be really good. So for example, at Clorox, I was doing marketing to men about how to buy charcoal and marketing to women about salad dressing or other kinds of products. And I really decided I had to do this because I knew that this was going to change everything. I thought the personals seemed like a good place to start, something that's really important to people.
Yeah, their love life.
Yeah, and that would be a great adventure. And at the time, our offices were in South Park. Wired was around the corner. Yes. It was just
so exciting.
It was so exciting. It was so new. I was, I think, employee number 5 or 6 at Electric Classifieds, but I was in charge of Match.com from the beginning. And our strategy was really to make it a clean, well-lit place for women. And the idea there was that if we got women, the men would follow. And that the women, and again, this is early 1995, women were relatively scarce on the internet compared to men. There were lots of personals. You might remember newspaper personals where you'd call a 900 number.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they had a very sleazy
they
reputation.
did.
So our job was to make personals into online dating. And that was one of the first things that we decided to do, that we're going to create this whole new category. The second thing we decided, which I mentioned, is we were going to focus on making it comfortable for women, safe, anonymous, and fun. So the first 2 things address issues that people were quickly realizing is that the internet had trolls and, you don't necessarily know who's there. Anonymity was also important because people want to feel like they could do this and not be known. But it had to be fun. Fun's important. We launched it in April of 1995. Back then, people didn't have photos on the internet. You probably didn't have a digital camera in 1995. It was mostly a dial-up world. Mm-hmm. So your younger audience might not remember that you had to dial in through your phone line. Right. And there were only 5 questions or 6 questions that we went up with to match people. A lot of them had to do with appearance because we couldn't have photos. I often speak about the need to have women on a team. I'll go to the audience and say, well, how many of you have ever done online dating? Lots of hands go up. Okay. How many of you have ever had to put your weight down in pounds? No hands go up. And I say, that's because of me. Because back in 1995, when the engineer comes in and says, what are the weight ranges? I'm like, no, we are trying to target women. That is not something that they want to put on. So we're going to have body type. We'll have athletic, slender, Rubenesque, whatever. So that's one reason.
Good idea.
The other thing is I had worked at AAA, a big membership-based organization. In fact, I think in California at the time, 90% of people had a AAA card. I knew the power of membership. So, and up until recently, membership has been the primary business model. So it stood the test of time. But I am blessed because Match.com from the beginning had people who found each other, but we also had people who had given up on finding somebody, who started to date again, and people who had very much richer lives because now they were dating more and not settling for the first person who they met because they knew they could meet other people.
So that gave it a heart-centered aspect to the
Yeah,
business.
We knew fairly soon because we, of course, were taking customer feedback.
Well, I see a thread in there, I think, that led to your work in privacy because there's a privacy aspect to Match.com.
Yeah, so Match.com was one of the first customers of Trustee, the privacy mark.
Oh, really?
Because we were trying to do anything to make our brand. So we went with Trustee and got the certification.
Was it always your goal to be on the board and to be the leader in these companies, or did that just sort of evolve? I see where you said yes and it met your passion and your brain power, but was this an underlying goal for you? Because now you've got a new startup, which we'll talk about in just a moment.
Generally speaking, in startups, the people who do well are the founders and the CEO. The second thing is I think that if you know how to lead, you almost need to lead. It took me a while to have the confidence to know that I should lead. But once you do that, you kind of have to do it.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you do it because it's all about ego. It's just that some people are just more comfortable making decisions and propelling things along and
taking responsibility for them and
the whole
driving a
responsibility for it,
project.
yeah.
Right. So do you have any advice for someone who maybe they have a good idea and they would like to look into developing it?
You know, a few things. So I was at Match.com, and it wasn't exactly my idea, but I executed on it. A lot of people will say ideas are cheap. You know, the real thing is to execute on it, make it happen. So I would say that for most of my career, actually, I've been working on other people's ideas. And that's okay. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. And I think I've learned a lot doing that. I think for women, if you want to start out being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of little ways that you can be an entrepreneur. You've got to make sure you have the skills, or the people around you to have the skills. Mm-hmm. So one reason why so many men are able to start startups is because they know how to program and code. So it would be really good if you want to start your own company in a digital realm to know how to program and code, mm-hmm. or have somebody around you that can do that. On the other hand, if you're a programmer like my partner Carrie is in Baby Heirs, she needed somebody who knew how to do the business aspects, fundraising, marketing. And so I was a good match with her. So I generally say it's really good to have a team and to bring together people that have complementary or additional skills than you have. And I think if you're really thinking about a startup and you're serious that you need big money, what's really amazing now are all the accelerators and incubators like 500 Startups or Y Combinator or all kinds or StartX, which is what I went to, which is associated with Stanford. There are all kinds of these new groups and workspaces that help entrepreneurs get started and really give some good advice, sometimes money and mentorship and more. You don't buy servers. You put everything on Amazon Web Services or Google or Microsoft services. You know,
that was great. It was my next question was, do you have to have a lot of money? Do you have to go to Stanford? Those
right.
kind of...
Okay, yeah. So to be an entrepreneur now, I think mostly what you have to have is the conviction of your idea and a commitment to really persevere and make it grow. But you also need to be agile because maybe ideas and how you execute it will change. You've got to, it is helpful to have some money. It's helpful to have resources. So for example, I was able to do what I'm doing with my company Baby Heirs, partially because I have some money that I've made over the years, and I have a regular income renting rooms in my house on Airbnb.
Yeah, I love that. You've been a role model to me about that. So tell us about Baby Heirs. This is a great concept. Well, and there are opportunities.
Yes, there are. Baby Heirs was started in Santa Fe, New Mexico by a gal, her name's Carrie Couillard. She has an MS in computer science, so knows how to code. And she had two sons and a garage full of gear. And she thought to herself, well, why don't I do something with this? Let me put up a website and rent it out. And within days, she had a $300 order.
Get out. That is so encouraging.
Of course. And it kept on going. So she was able to cut back so she could spend some more time with her kids. Mm-hmm. And she built this business of about, $30,000 a year with very little investment, renting baby gear, cribs, car seats, toy boxes, strollers, you name it. We have a list, 60 plus items.
Everything you need when
Everything
you're
you need
traveling.
when you travel, and or for extended stays as well. And Carrie tapped into the Santa Fe tourist market, but also the grandparent market. Now, Santa Fe is only 75,000 people. And when I met Carrie, so she decided she wanted to get out of New Mexico, come to Silicon Valley, see if she could get some advice. So she went to Women's Startup Lab, which is one of these accelerators that we're talking about. I was actually a advisor to the entrepreneurs coming through Women's Startup Lab. So when I saw that there was a gal from Santa Fe, where I grew up,
Right.
I was like, I gotta talk to her. So she gave me her initial pitch, and maybe because I knew Santa Fe, I was pretty impressed. And honestly, in that first meeting, I said to Carrie, you should hire me as your CEO.
I love it.
And I didn't expect her to say yes right away. But it did start a conversation about how we would work together, what I could do, what she could do. She had already started the idea of making baby. So let me get to what Baby Herge is.
Yes.
Baby Herge is a two-sided marketplace for renting baby gear, primarily to traveling families and grandparents. So on one side is the traveling families and grandparents. On the other side are trusted partners. These are independent contractors, mostly moms and couples, as well as some retired couples who want to make some money and want to start a baby gear rental business.
That's good. This sounds great.
We're sort of like sharing economy, but it's more than that. So it's not one crib and one car seat at a time. They start out with some inventory. If they're a young family, they probably have some things already.
Right.
But over time, as they get the orders, they build up their inventory so that by Thanksgiving, they'll have 5 or 6 cribs that they rent. The deal for them is pretty good. They get 80% of the rental fee, 100% of the delivery fee. So they keep a lot of it.
That sounds great.
We pay them fairly quickly. We collect the money so they don't have to, just like on Airbnb, you don't have to ask people for the money. By the way, they sometimes get tips. They pay us a little bit every month based on their sales volume for insurance. And so we have an insurance policy, product liability. God forbid something happens
To a child.
to a child. And most of our trusted partners, I think 75% of them have college degrees. 30% have master's degrees. Many of them have worked full-time or are working full-time. So it's important that they have this protection. What I really like too is a lot of them have done gig economy jobs, maybe driving Lyft or Uber, but they find this so gratifying.
Oh, really? Do you have some stories about that?
Oh God, yes. I mean, we have a community on Facebook called Mastermind, and they share ideas and stuff all the time. So a lot of our reviews, the parents say, you saved the vacation. The family went to the hotel. They thought the hotel had a crib. It was only a playpen, and the baby wasn't going to sleep in that playpen.
Right.
Well, when you're on vacation, you really want to have your sleep because you want to have a good time. And so our trusted partner, on very little notice, went and delivered a full-size crib, and that can make a difference. Another example is a family was traveling with a disabled child, and they wanted a shower attachment. And our trusted partner reached out to the community of other trusted partners and said, wow, which one would you get and how much would you charge for this? And got some really good feedback, and also kudos and compliments for trying to go beyond
Meet
to
their
serve this
needs.
family. Yeah.
Because there's so many things that you have to take with you on these trips, and then a parent of a disabled child, they just need some support to get through their visits and help them make the most of their free time.
Right. I mean,
This sounds
vacation and
great.
family time is really, really important.
You only get 2 weeks in America in most jobs.
Yeah. Well, these millennials, though, they take a lot of vacations. They're pretty smart. They've demanded
like
a little
that.
bit more. So it's really kind of fun for them. We also see we have over 80 trusted partners. We'll be at 100 soon. We have Ted in Lake Tahoe, who has a great little lake beach kit for families. So every market might be a little bit different based on what kids need in that market. On average, they're doing 6 to 10 orders a month. On average, orders are over $125, $135. They keep most of that. Mm-hmm. And it's a nice little extra income. Some are even doing $3,000 or $4,000 a month.
So what is your goal with how many trusted partners that you would like to see?
Well, based on what we saw in Santa Fe, what we decided is that we should have more than one trusted partner everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that big markets could support many, many more. And most of the competition really had more of a franchise model or a one person per market. And we think that the demand is much higher than that, especially as we get into other things like long-term rentals or maybe driving services or babysitting or other things that we can do. So
there's room for growth.
There's room for a lot of growth. We've got
Right.
to build a brand. We have to make sure that, just like with Match.com, it reminds me a lot of Match.com. Mm-hmm. We have to build a brand and we have to evangelize that this is something you can do, because 80% of parents don't even know that they can do this.
If one of the viewers or some of the viewers had an interest in becoming a trusted partner, what sort of steps would they need to take?
So we do a lot to bring people in pretty effectively. First, you'd go to babierge.com, BABIERGE.com. We have some information about being a trusted partner there. But the steps are really to put in an application, to have a personal interview, and through that we want to make sure that you understand that trusted partner owns the equipment. We're not going to buy the equipment for you. That they understand how much importance we put towards reliability and safety and cleanliness.
And training.
Bi-weekly have a webinar where people can come in and talk to us and talk to another trusted partner about a day in the life of being a Babierge trusted partner. And so they get a lot of good information there. Then we help them with the setup of their own page on our platform. We also teach them about local marketing, how to go to their local hotels or the vacation rentals in their market, or how to get on Nextdoor, how to place an ad on Yelp, how to do all these different things, how to get marketing materials.
That's a very valuable information that
Yeah.
goes beyond being a trusted partner.
Right. Those skills are things that they can do for anything else. They join our community as well, and they get so the community can help them with a particular order or an idea, but oftentimes they share marketing ideas.
And so you're creating a community.
Yeah, when we surveyed them and talked to them, what do they really value? What they value is the insurance, which would be difficult to get on your own. They value the fact that the platform works pretty well and brings in orders. They love the community, and I could see why. I think it really makes a difference.
Well, I wish you the best of success with Babierge.
Thank you.
Well, I see you as a pretty fearless woman in business.
Thank you.
If other people had fears about, dealing with money or this is too complex, do you have any advice for them?
I don't know if it's fear that holds people back or lack of confidence. A big wake-up call for my feminism and my dedication to women in tech goes back to Match.com. So we sold Match.com in 1998 for less than $7 million. And at the time, I got $100,000 for helping to sell the business and $100,000 for helping transition it. And especially after it was sold for $70 million less than a year later.
Versus its value in the marketplace.
Right. I knew in 1998 when we sold it, we were generating $1 million in revenue. In 1998, in 1997, when we were making this change to sell Match.com to fund the rest of Electric Classified, I did go to the board and say, I think this was a mistake. They decided to sell Match rather than grow it, even though we were the jewel. We were generating revenue. So number one, how did I mess up? I did not have the confidence to ask other people for help in thinking through what I should have done. And what I should have done was found the investors and led the spin out myself, with me continuing, and key members of my team having an equity position in the company.
Yes, you were the heart of it anyway.
Right. I didn't have enough confidence, but it also struck me that no man involved in the board of Match.com or Electric Classifieds, or the 4 or 5 CEOs that I went through when I was working at Match, none of them suggested that I should do that either. And I think that speaks to the inherent gender issues in Silicon Valley. I feel confident that had I been a guy, I might have been more confident.
Yes, maybe.
But had I been a guy, somebody would have said, why don't you lead?
Fran's the obvious choice.
Why don't you find the investors, come up to a deal with us? And that was never even presented as an option. And that really hurt, especially when part of the reason why I think they were willing to sell it for so little is it was still very early in the .com days. An understanding of what community means on the internet, or social network, or brands.
New.
It was really new. So part of it is we were so early. And one way that I deal with it now is that 10 years later, when I was running Trustee, which was a nonprofit focused on internet privacy, it was obvious to me that the privacy issues were getting larger and we were underfunded as a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And I basically did what I should have done with Match. I convinced the board to let me go raise money to find the investors and to spin it out into a for-profit company. And this time I got my share, as did my key employees. And it was a do-over. So I'm lucky. I got a do-over.
On next week's episode, Mary Landor and family have opened their hearts to share their process of being present with Mary's end-of-life journey.